How does China view the current China DRC relationship? The DRC is an important country in Africa. China and the DRC enjoy traditional friendship. In the past 50 years and more, our two sides have supported each other on issues concerning our respective core interests and major concerns. In recent years, the two countries have deepened political mutual trust, achieved fruitful outcomes in practical cooperation, and maintained close communication and cooperation in regional and international affairs. President Tshisekedi values the DRC's relationship with China and actively supports the advancement of the bilateral ties. During the visit, President Xi will hold a welcome ceremony and a welcome banquet for President Tshisekedi. The two heads of state will hold talks and jointly attend a signing ceremony of cooperation documents. Premier Li Qiang and Chairman Zhao Leji will meet with the President respectively. We're confident that this visit will provide new impetus for the comprehensive and deep-going growth of the relationship between China and the DRC and generate new outcomes in a friendly cooperation between the two countries. Next question, please. China Daily. The
22nd Ordinary Session of the Council of the League of Arab States at the summit level was held in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia on May the 19th. We noted that the Presidency sent a congratulatory letter to the rotating President. Can you share more information with us? After many years without the presence of Syrian leaders at previous sessions, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad attended this session at invitation. Do you have any comment? The 32nd Ordinary Session of the Council of the League of the Arab States at the summit level opened in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia on May the 19th. President Xi sent a congratulatory letter to the rotating President, King of Saudi Arabia, on the convening of the session. President Xi said that he is glad to see that Arab countries have continuously taken new steps and made new achievements on the path of unity and self-improvement. China is ready to work with Arab countries to carry forward the spirit of China-Arab friendship, follow through on the outcomes of the first China-Arab State Summit, bring the China-Arab strategic partnership to a higher level, and continue to write a new chapter in China-Arab friendship. We are glad to see that for some time the spring breeze of reconciliation has been blowing across the Arab world. Countries have put on a new look and people there are seeing hopes. China congratulates on the reunion of the big family of Arab countries with President Bashar al-Assad attending the session. The return of Syria to the Arab League fully shows that enhancing solidarity and cooperation among Arab countries through dialogue and consultation is what the people aspire and represents the trend of the time. It also fully proves that Arab countries have the capability to hold their future in their own hands. As a sincere friend of Arab countries, China always supports Arab countries in strengthening strategic autonomy and seeking strength through unity, and always supports the Arab world in playing a bigger role in regional and international affairs. China stands ready to work with the Arab side to deliver on the outcomes of the first China-Arab State Summit, unleash the strong resilience and vitality of the China-Arab relations, and play a positive role in promoting peace, stability, and development of the region.
Next question, please. CCTV. On the 19th, the G7 summit and leaders issued the Hiroshima Vision on Nuclear Disarmament, reaffirmed their commitment to achieving a world without nuclear weapons with undiminished security for all. The document said that China is accelerating building up of its nuclear arsenal without transparency nor meaningful dialogue poses a concern. The international nuclear arms control rules are not the house rules set or dictated by the G7. China rejects the G7's finger-pointing at China's nuclear policy. The G7 abandons the basic principles, including upholding global strategic stability, turns a blind eye to its own egregious act of undermining international nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation regime, feigned innocence, and attacked and smeared other countries' nuclear policy. The U.S. has the biggest nuclear arsenal in the world, but also is bent on the first use of nuclear weapons. It has been committed to its trilateral nuclear triad, withdrawn from agreements on arms control, including the Treaty on the Limitation of Anti-Ballistic Missile Systems and the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, seeks to forward deploy the strategic forces and spreads weapons-grade, highly enriched uranium to non-nuclear weapon states. The G7 accusation on China is a false narrative. China has been committed to its defensive nuclear strategy. It is the only country that is committed to no first use of nuclear weapon. It has always been committed to not using a nuclear weapon to countries without a nuclear weapon. It has been kept its nuclear arsenal at the minimum level of national security. Any country, as long as it does not use or threaten to use nuclear weapons toward China, it will be free from the threat of China's nuclear weapon. It is the most realistic transparency. Any country in the G7 countries who has nuclear weapons can ever achieve this transparency? This is our question. Next question, please.
路透社提问：中国网络监管机构表示，美国芯片制造商美光科技未能通过网络安全审查。中国禁止关键基础设施运营商从该公司购买产品。我们想问，哪些关键基础设施会受到美光禁令的影响？
On the cybersecurity review on Micron sales in China, competent Chinese authorities has released relevant information. I want to stress that relevant review is for preventing cybersecurity problems and the harms it poses to national key infrastructure security. It is a necessary step of safeguarding national security. And as well, on the specific information that you are concerned about, I would like to refer you to competent authority in China. Next question, please.
路透社提问：外交部宣布，刚果金总统将访华，总统将和部长将和中国寻求结束一项价值62亿美元的矿产换基础设施协议的重新谈判。外交部能否证实或评论此事？
I have announced that President Tshisekedi will visit China and China's arrangement for the visit. I can tell you that China and the DRC enjoys long-standing friendship with a broad prospect of practical cooperation. The resources for projects package cooperation between the two countries as an example of practical cooperation. It not only promoted the development of the mineral sector in the DRC, but also set up a big number of infrastructure projects such as roads, hospitals, and power stations. During the visit, the two leaders will have an in-depth exchange of view on cooperation between the two countries on all fronts and will chart the new course for future development of the China-DRC relationship.
彭博社记者：美国总统拜登表示，他预计与中国的关系将很快改善。他称早期的那个间谍气球的事件，非常愚蠢。拜登还表示，他的政府正在考虑是否解除对中国国防部长李尚福的制裁。美国国防部长正寻求与其会面。你对此有何评论？ 拜登和习主席之间会否会进行通话。
China and the U.S. has maintained necessary communication, but if the U.S. side asks for communication on the one side, yet on the other suppress and contain China in every possible means, and impose sanctions on Chinese officials, entities and companies, what is the sincerity and meaning of such communication? China firmly opposes any illegal unilateral sanctions and has expressed China's stern proposition to the U.S. side. The U.S. should roll back sanctions immediately and clear the hurdles, foster environment and create favorable conditions for the dialogue and communication with concrete actions. China has always been developing China-U.S. relations according to the principle proposed by President Xi, that is mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation. China urges the U.S. to have the right understanding about China, stop interfering in China's internal affairs, stop undermining China's sovereignty, security, development interests, meet China halfway, and take concrete actions to bring the bilateral relations back to the right track. And on the specific meeting that you mentioned, I have no information to offer. Next question, please. China News Service.
We have learned that the China-ASEAN senior officials consultation is going to be held. Can share the main agenda of the conference and China's expectation. As agreed between China and ASEAN, the 29th China-ASEAN senior officials consultation will be held in Shenzhen, China from May 24 to 26. Assistant Minister of Foreign Affairs Nong Rong will lead a delegation to the conference and co-chair the conference with Yu Chen-Aye, ASEAN Myanmar SOM leader of Myanmar, the ASEAN country coordinator for ASEAN-China dialogue relations. The China-ASEAN Senior Officials Consultation is an important annual consultation mechanism between the Foreign Affairs Departments of China and ASEAN countries, where preparations can be made for the China-ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting and the China-ASEAN Summit. This year marks the 10th anniversary of President Xi's proposition of fostering a closer community with a shared future for China and ASEAN, and the 20th anniversary of China's joining the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia. This will present new opportunities. At this consultation, the two sides will take stock and look to future growth of the China-ASEAN Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, especially with regard to delivering on the common understandings between the leaders of the two sides and deepening practical cooperation in areas of political security, trade and economy, social culture and people-to-people exchange, agriculture and food security. Together, the two sides can provide more positive energy for stability and development of the region. 法新社记者，巴布亚新几内亚与美国签订，今天将与美国签订一项国防协议。美国在南太平洋的存在将会提升，中国对此有何评论
？China has no objection to the normal cooperation between Papua New Guinea and other countries, and we support the international community's more attention to the well-being and development of the Pacific Island countries, and any consultations and negotiations of any cooperation treaties should be conducive to cooperation. We should be alert to any actions of using any cooperation to target any third party. Next question, please.
报道，日本驻华大使被外交部召见，中方抗议日方在G7峰会上的表态。中方对此有何评论
Vice Minister Sun Weidong had a meeting with and launched a representation to the Japanese ambassador to China on G7 related issues, and in the joint statement, G7 countries has been jointly attacking and smearing China and grossly interfering in China's internal affairs. China has launched stern representations. Japan should be committed to the principles of the full documents of the bilateral relations and be committed to the efforts of promoting the sound and steady development of the bilateral relations.
I have two questions. China's cybersecurity restrictions on the U.S. chip maker Micron technology. What's the risk posed for other related companies in the South Korea? The U.S. asked ROK companies not to use ROK semiconductor as a replacement of U.S. products to China. What's Chinese government's position?
On the first question, on the cybersecurity review of Micron's products in China, Chinese competent departments has released information. I want to stress that China is a country based on the rule of law. Any company needs to operate based on the rules and laws in China. China is firmly committed to high-level opening up and fostering a market-oriented, law-based, and internationalized business environment, as long as the companies from any country and any platforms, products, and services abide by China's laws and regulations. We welcome them to enter Chinese market. In our second question, we have expressed our propositions on multiple occasions on the U.S. export control of China's chip makers. The U.S. has been safeguarding its selfish hegemonic gains, imposing decoupling and the surveying of supply chains on other countries. It has been coerced its allies to work with the U.S. to contain China. It seriously damaged the market economy rules and international economic and trade rules. It undermines the stability of the industry and supply chains. It hurts the interests of companies from China and other countries. We urge relevant countries and companies to make joint efforts in safeguarding multilateral trade systems and safeguard the security of global industrial and supply chains. Next question, please.
Yuri. Ukraine President Zelensky said attended the G7 summit. What's your comment on this?
We noted that President Zelensky attended the G7 summit, and on the Ukraine issue, China's position is consistent. We always believe that the relevant issue should be settled in a political ways and dialogue. We urge G7 members can work with the international community to play a constructive role for the political settlement of the Ukraine issue.
Next question, please.彭博社记者，美国商务部在一份声明中表示，最近的突击检查和针对其他美国公司的行动，包括针对美光公司的行动，与中方声称的开放市场和致力于透明的监管框架不一致。你对此有何评论？
I have briefed China's proposition on the Micron issue, and I will not repeat that. And on the questions that other issues that you mentioned, I want to stress that China is a country based on rule of law. Any cooperation of any company should be based on abiding by the rules and laws in China, and judicial entities in China will probe into any illegal actions. China is committed to high-level opening up and fostering a market oriented, law-based, and internationalized business environment, and we welcome any company from any countries, any platforms, products, and services to enter Chinese market as long as they abide by Chinese laws and regulations. Next question, please. Global Times. The president of the European Commission said at the G7 summit session that many emerging and developing countries are looking for sustainable funding opportunities. The BRI looked at a good chip offer, but many countries in the global south have made bad experience with China. And she added that G7 should offer win-win partnerships to developing countries that are willing to work with them and needs to be fast and get concrete. What's your comment? Hearing this rhetoric, we can't help but ask what the G7 as the wealthiest countries in the world has visibly contributed to the well-being of developing countries. Why is the G7 so obsessed with smearing and disrupting the normal cooperation between developing countries? China will always be a member of the big family of developing countries. Our cooperation with fellow developing countries is aimed for common development, which has been highly commended by the latter. The reason why the BRI has become a much welcomed public good is because it is committed to wide consultation, joint contribution, and shared benefits. We never impose our thinking onto others, nor do we slip into this initiative any selfish political agenda. We pursue mutually beneficial and win-win cooperation and common development that is more inclusive, balanced, and beneficial to all. China attaches high importance to the issue of debt sustainability and has tried to help fellow developing countries to ease their debt burdens to the best of its capacity. China has contributed as much as 63% of the total debt payments suspended under the G20 DSSI, more than the G7 countries combined. A recent report by the Boston University Global Development Center noted that the investment and financing cooperation between China and fellow developing countries is driven by the recipient countries' vast real demand, which could help them to overcome bottlenecks in development, unlock global growth, and increase global real income by up to 3 percentage points. If the G7 really cares about developing countries, then you
The capital of El Salvador. Are there any Chinese casualties? Mourns deeply for the victims and offer our sympathy to the injured and the families who have lost loved ones. According to preliminary information gathered by the Chinese embassy in El Salvador, no Chinese casualties have been reported so far.
Next one, please. Is there any other questions? That's the end of today's briefing. Thank you.